Hello and welcome to Kanda Gaigo Career College's English Roundtable. I am Kevin and I am joined today with Shayne, and we are going to be discussing guns. So Shayne, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thanks.
Excellent. So you are a gun collector. Would you say that's true?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't be shamed.
Okay. Yeah.
And so how did you get started with guns? I mean, we've discussed before that you grew up in Hawaii.
Right.
Were you able to purchase guns then when you lived there, or did this start in a
Okay.
different time?
Well, our story is a little bit interesting, I think. When I was about 10 years old, my mother started taking shooting lessons
Oh, really?
at the
Okay.
range, and she brought me along. So I started learning how to shoot real guns when I was about 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
Is
how I
this
got
in
involved.
Hawaii?
In Hawaii. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of started her to want to take lessons or have a gun?
I think she just wanted to learn how to shoot a gun for self-defense, maybe. I'm
Mhm.
not really sure, but I believe it was for self-defense.
Okay. And did she purchase one before she started, or was she borrowing or renting?
She eventually purchased the gun.
Okay, so when she started, she did not own a gun.
No.
I see. Okay. So she just brought you along when you were 10?
Yeah,
Like,
and
this
you know,
is-
little kid, right? You
Yeah.
watch movies, you want to learn how to shoot, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I think we can talk about maybe misconceptions with, different countries,
Right.
because living in Japan, there are no real guns.
Right.
You can't purchase a gun unless a specific license, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
So, for us being from America, most states, is it all states? I mean, each state has a different law depending on like open carry or
Right.
if you can have a gun. But, it's kind of like you just grow up with it. And like you said, being from the South, there's a lot of guns.
Yeah.
So you kind of just grow up with it.
Right.
It's just a natural thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, my dad's got some guns, or my uncle gave me a shotgun, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand that a gun is just a tool,
Mhm.
and you can use a tool in a good way or in a bad way. So
Right.
I think most people just automatically demonize guns. It's kind of like a kitchen knife. I mean, you can use a kitchen knife to cause a lot of damage as well.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I think we should just treat guns as tools.
Mm.
And that way we won't have any prejudices or try to eliminate those biases as well.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Because especially the background that we can talk about is a lot of Japanese people are very, very against guns. And
Yeah.
my thinking is that's because they didn't grow up with it.
Right.
And they only see the negative point, and that's always pushed as a narrative.
Yeah.
And not open to talk about because it's just not around. They see it as like you said, it's demonized.
Yeah. So I think a interesting way to think about it from a Japanese point of view is think about a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
You use it to cut your carrots or whatever, and for cooking. It's a tool that you use, and if you don't have it, you might not eat as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a tool. So if you think about it that way and think about a knife in your kitchen, it's been there all your life. And if you replace that image with a gun, that's how many Americans may feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they grew up with guns like myself. So,
Right. Yeah, and whenever I cut my carrots, I always shoot it off with a gun. So.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. So yeah, I've so from my background, I've never owned a gun, and I've only been shooting twice in my life, and that was when I was in my late 20s.
Okay.
So, my father had, I think, 2 or 3 guns in the house, but I've never seen them actually. I think like you said, it's more for just protection to have just in case. But that's about it. My uncle is a big gun nut.
Right.
Sometimes I question if the ones he has he can actually have.
Oh, right.
But yeah, every time I go visit, I'll ask him to go see the guns, and he'll bring them out and show me. It's always kind of fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get these images of guns through movies or the news, maybe.
Right.
But I think if you actually worked with guns or shot guns in your past, you may have a different image as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. The first time I did shoot, as soon as I pulled the trigger, let out the first round, I really just kind of looked at it and I realized like this is powerful.
Yeah.
This is really, really powerful to have. And
Right.
so that for me, that was my first initial feeling. It was just like power. This is power right here.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. It is very powerful. So it's a very dangerous tool as well. So yeah.
So in the more recent times, I think the pushback a lot of people have is, especially with seeing what's happened in America with so many shootings. I think this year there's been, goodness,
Right. There's
over
many mass
100.
shootings. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost daily, it feels like. And I think that narrative gets pushed as well, where
Right.
if we just eliminate the guns, then we're not going to have this problem. But I don't see that. I think it's, if someone wants to hurt people, they're going to find a way.
Yeah. And I think it's almost impossible to eliminate guns in America.
Right.
Just because.
Well, there's more guns than people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's one. And then you got to think about all the ones that have been stashed away that
Right.
people, they may have passed away and no one knew it was there. So then
Right.
all these unaccounted for weapons.
Yeah. So actually, I have a friend who's a sheriff's deputy in Hawaii, and he was telling me that during training, one exercise you need to do is a person with a rubber knife stands about maybe 3 meters away from him, and then they say, okay, they tell the person with a rubber knife to charge the deputy. Deputy needs to draw his gun and try to, pretend to stop the charger.
Yeah.
And my friend was saying the quickest he ever got was his gun just out his holster like this,
So just right out of the holster. And
so
wow.
that just proved, he says, having a knife is much more dangerous than having a gun in a close quarter situation.
Right.
Remember that incident in Akihabara?
Yeah.
That crazy man with the knife was stabbing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, something like that just proves that, you don't need a gun to cause a lot of damage.
That's a good point. And also, if you think about it, the gun, you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
Unless you have a silencer, of
Right,
course.
right.
But, that it will also make people scatter. You're not going to get as many people. But a knife, you could just, not to be sadistic, but like you said, it is quiet and you wouldn't know about it until maybe it's right upon you.
Right.
It's a good point.
So personally, I would be more afraid of someone approaching me with a knife than with a gun.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Because there's also the thing, you don't even know if the person is trained well. They could shoot all around you like Pulp
Exactly.
Fiction.
Yeah. It's not like the movies. It's very difficult to operate a gun weapon. Yeah.
Right.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
So, obviously in Japan we can't have a gun unless, like we said, there's a certain permit you may have. So where are you storing your weapons? Do you keep them with family members? Do you have it somewhere with friends or?
Yeah. So back in Hawaii, I have a gun safe. So yeah, that's where I store my guns.
Okay, I see. What would you say is your favorite to shoot?
My favorite to shoot is actually it's something called a 10-22. It's a 22 caliber rifle, small caliber.
Oh, okay.
Just because the rounds are very small and inexpensive, and it's just a fun rifle to shoot.
Okay, there you go.
Are you familiar with the word plinking?
No.
Plinking is like when you just go out to a field and shoot at things like a golf ball down the range or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So just set up your own little
targets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's called plinking.
Plinking, yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that term.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can imagine, like I said before, I'm from the South, so there's a lot of land.
Right.
And you can imagine, there's a lot of plinking that goes on just in people's backyards.
Yeah.
I've been to friends' houses where they'll just, all right, let's go out and shoot. It's like you just stand on your back porch and let off some rounds.
Right.
Kind of interesting. So, if people were to shoot for the first time, what would you recommend would be a good starter? Obviously you're not going to give them an AK-47.
Yeah, I'd recommend an air gun.
Oh, okay, really?
So preferably an air rifle. Rifles are a little easier than handguns.
What would be the reason why you would recommend?
Just because if you start off with the 22, for example, it's one of the smallest calibers you could start with. It's still a real gun, so to speak. So it's starting with the air gun is less intimidating.
Right.
And you could even do it indoors as well.
Yeah, and that's just to kind of get you the feel of holding the gun, practicing targets, things like that. Okay.
And actually, do you know the Chiyodaku Sports Center down the road?
Yeah.
So they have a air gun range there.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, in Japan, you need a license to actually shoot an air gun.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Now, when you say air gun, let me make sure I'm correct. Are you talking like airsoft?
Not airsoft. It's
Okay.
pellets, lead pellets
Okay, so
or
this could
BBs. Yeah,
so this would actually cause some damage or harm.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. We're not talking, like I said,
Not
airsoft where
the
it's.
plastic airsoft.
I
No.
see.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of how would you get a license if you wanted to do that?
I'm not sure about the process in Japan, but
Yeah.
I do know you need a license for that though.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. I wonder. Yeah, I'm curious now because I would like to
Yeah,
check
I
it
think you
out.
can just go down to the sports center and try because the reason why I know this is I had a student many years ago who was a member there,
Oh,
and
really?
she told me, yeah, I got into competitive shooting, this and that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty interesting.
yeah,
So she was like competitively
yeah.
going and doing tournaments or things
It's
like
called
that?
a three-position shooting.
Hmm.
So you shoot in standing, kneeling, and sitting, yeah, or prone, on the ground.
On the ground?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, interesting. I wonder how she got into it, or do you know how she
I
wanted
can't
to start?
remember. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. And I'm not trying to be sexist, but I mean, it's kind of surprising to hear
Right. Right.
of a lady wanting to
Yeah.
shoot.
Yeah.
You don't often hear that,
Right.
especially
Actually, I had a not air gun, but I had a student last term.
Mhm.
She was into Kyudo.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So that was, and I told, oh, you ever try, thought about shooting an air gun?
Yeah.
And she was kind of thinking about it, but not really. But yeah,
Oh, okay, I see.
very similar though, because it takes a lot of concentration.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. Okay, so I asked about your favorite gun to shoot.
Right.
What would you say was the worst gun you've ever shot? For example, it just didn't feel right. Everybody has a feel when they
Mhm.
shoot. Like this gun doesn't feel good to me. And
Yeah.
is there any that you've experienced that you felt was just not for you?
Okay. The gun that I didn't really like shooting was, are you familiar with the Colt 45
Yeah,
ACP? Like,
yeah,
old
yeah.
army, yeah,
Hmm.
automatics. There's one in a bigger caliber, 10 millimeter version of that. It's a bigger bullet, basically.
Oh, okay, I see.
So the recoil was very hard to handle. So not a
Interesting,
fun gun to shoot. Yeah.
interesting. So for those that are skeptical
Mm.
or worried, would you recommend they just try it just to see what it's about? Because again, coming from Japan, you
Mm.
get a lot of negativity towards
Right.
it. People saying, "Why would you want a gun?" I know I would never shoot. How would you convince someone to just try it
Um,
to sway them, or even just to see how it's like?
well, I'm the type of person that before I say anything negative about something, I'd want to try it myself
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that I can really say, yes, I tried it and I didn't like it because of X,
right, right.
Yeah. But I think if people from Japan really are interested in trying to shoot a real gun,
Hmm.
you could go to places like Guam or Hawaii. They
Oh, really?
are indoor range. I actually, when I was a university student, I had a part-time job. I was a teacher in one of those ranges.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was
Nice.
a Japanese-owned company, and so many Japanese tourists visited me, and I used to give lessons how to shoot guns.
What was their like experience? Was it always
Most of the
good or?
time, they had fun.
Mhm.
Many times, people would be shocked, because of the recoil,
Right,
especially
right,
with a handgun.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got to hold on to that.
yeah. So luckily, the guns were chained to the bench. So
Okay, I
yeah.
see. Yeah, my wife's Japanese,
Mm,
and one of the times we went back home, she tried it out,
right.
and yeah, she had a great time.
Yeah.
It
I
was fun.
mean, it can be fun. That's why if someone's interested in just starting,
Mhm.
just start with the air gun. Even
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
those airsoft guns, just
yeah,
so
yeah.
that they
Right,
can be familiar with the mechanics of the gun.
right. I see.
Because Japanese airsoft guns are very realistic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm trying to think if there's anything more that I want to get to. You have anything you'd like to mention?
um, yeah, I think for the listeners out there, if you think guns are scary, guns they can be scary if they're used in the wrong way. But I
Right.
think try to think of them as just a tool.
Yeah.
So a knife can be scary. A kitchen knife can be scary too,
Oh yeah,
right? So
very scary.
yeah,
Like you said,
yeah,
I'd be more scared of someone holding a knife near me than
yeah,
a gun
right,
because it doesn't take long, like you mentioned
yeah.
before. All right, very good. So I'd like to talk more about guns. Hopefully, in the future, we can bring that up, and maybe we can get a little bit deeper into the background as far as if guns were to go away. If let's say the American government decided guns are outlawed, you can no longer have them. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay,
Kind of see where that would potentially go.
right,
So
right.
maybe in the future, let's discuss this a little bit more.
Okay.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you for coming on, and I'm looking forward to shooting again, thanks to our
Okay.
conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you for listening to English Roundtable, made possible by Kanda Gaigo Career College in Tokyo, Japan. If you enjoyed hearing natural English conversation, subscribe and like us wherever you're listening, and check us out on YouTube, Twitter, and our other SNS platforms, which will be in the description for this episode. Head over to the YouTube page to see some of the keywords we used in the conversation and other activities to test your English listening skills. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.